Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Only Land Fan Show. My name is Kendall Lejeune, and our guest today is Chris Johnsen. Chris Johnsen hails from South Louisiana and recently moved into a new home on 100 acres in Mississippi. He is a husband and father to two young boys. With 15 years of experience as an electrician, Chris transitioned into the land business about 2 years ago by chance. Since then, he has successfully flipped over 100 properties and completed several subdivides. In his free time, Chris enjoys playing pickleball and coaching his son's soccer team. Chris, thanks so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me. It's cool to be on the other side of this. I've probably listened to 100 of your episodes.
Thanks for listening and thanks for joining. Super excited to chat with you. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. So let's jump right in. For those listening that might not be familiar with you, give us a little bit of a breakdown. How did you get started doing land?
Yeah, I got in probably a little different than most people got in. So I had a house that me and my wife lived in, and next door there was a vacant parcel of land, just a 1 acre wooded parcel of land. And I wasn't in real estate at all. I was just an electrician, but I knew that I needed to buy that land. Somebody didn't build next to me, and then I'd have neighbors that I don't want. I taught myself how to use the assessor's website and find out who owned it. And then I ended up skip tracing her before I knew what skip tracing was. Um, Negotiated with her and bought it from her. And then a few weeks later, after I had bought it from her, somebody approached me and offered me double what I paid for it. And so I think I bought it for 15. Somebody offered me 30 or something for it, but I didn't want to sell it because I still didn't want neighbors, but it just sparked the idea. Maybe I can do that again.
Yeah.
So I tried that again. I just went on the assessor's website and manually clicked parcels and literally in a notebook would write down just hundreds of people's information, manually skip trace all that. And I would do that. So I'd do electrical work all day. I'd come home, play with the kids, and then I'd go lock myself in the office for an hour or two. And this is before I knew land was an actual thing that people do. I didn't know this whole nation of land investors. But anyway, I did that for a couple of weeks and I ended up finding 6 acres that I bought for 15 and then sold for 38. And my wife was a little skeptical about it at first, but when I showed her that $20,000 check, I was like, this is real. So I
Yeah.
did that super manually like that 2 more times. And then after that first deal, I found the Land podcast. I had run across Ari Tipster and just binged all of his episodes and was teaching myself. But I did 3 more deals. And after the third deal, I shut my electrical business down and went full time. And that was back in March of 2022.
Wow, that is incredible. I love that. I love messy action. I love jumping in and just figuring it out. That's incredible. That's incredible. So, can you talk a little bit about when you first started? It sounds like you were doing the traditional model where you took possession of the properties and then you turn around and flip them. Is that your current business model right now? Is that sort of still your bread and butter?
Yeah. So maybe for the first 8 or so, I would use my own cash. I started with 15,000 out of my savings and just kept rolling that over and flipping it for the first maybe 4 or 5 months. And then just like everybody else does, ran out of money and had to figure out what else to do. So I heard a podcast on double closing and I heard the podcast. I called up my title company and I said, hey, can you guys do this? And they said, yeah, we can do that. And I was aggravated that they didn't tell me that before that. But after that first year from March to December, I flipped about 40 properties. Most of them were double closes because of cash constraints. Now I do a whole slew of things. I do a few subdivides. I wholesale or assign contracts. I'll buy and flip traditionally. I've used bank financing to buy properties, but I mostly focus on larger rural acreage or larger home sites in Mississippi and Louisiana.
Excellent. So, when you say larger, can you give us a breakdown of what does that look like?
Yeah, so my lists are 10 acres and up. I don't cap it on the upside, but I usually go minimum 10 acres. I just find the spread is a little better, especially if you're wholesaling, because you can buy a 5 acre parcel for, I don't know, $25,000 and flip it for 50 if you buy it for 50% and sell for 100%. Or you can buy $100,000 parcel and you could buy it at 75% and sell it for 100% and still make the same thing and not have to buy it so cheap. So that's why I do it. Just the margins are bigger.
Yeah, that makes total sense. You mentioned earlier that you do a mix of different deal structures, traditional flipping, wholesaling, double close. In your particular business, how do you decide which deal structure to go with for any given deal?
Yeah, I think that depends on how much money's in my account. But I've been partnering with real estate agents lately. Just I have a real estate agent for each little region of the two states that I work. So I just have built those relationships over the last 2 years. So I know if I find something in, I don't know, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, where you went to college at,
Yeah.
I can call Mr. Ed Vines out there, and he's the man for when you find land out there. He knows everything about it, and he's also willing to partner with me on stuff or fun deals. And it's been great because it's not only money, but he's super knowledgeable about that area. And a lot of times he can sell stuff really fast. So I think partnering with agents is a huge benefit for anybody looking to do this. Um, but it also depends on the property. If it has a bunch of road frontage, then it would probably it could possibly make a good subdivide. If I think I can buy it if I think I could put it under contract at 65% and maybe sell it at 85%, then that's probably a wholesale deal. It just depends on the type of property and then the purchase price.
Excellent. So you just mentioned working with real estate agents. It sounds like that's a pretty important strategy in your business. For people that are listening to this that may not be familiar with really how to work with agents, maybe they've just done it the very traditional way before, no agents. How do you go about finding agents and figuring out which ones to work with and how to develop those relationships?
Yeah, it's kind of luck of the draw. What I do is go to Land Watch and I just maybe give them a call. All the people who have sold land in that area, or maybe the people who have sold the most land. But even I don't know. I've had such hit and miss agents. I just happen to have a handful of really good ones now because I've been through a lot of them. I still don't sell. I still sell most of my property on my own, either on Facebook Marketplace or just with my network that I've built over the last 2 years. But I don't sell all my property with agents. Most of the property that I do sell with agents, it's because I'm partnering with that agent.
Mm. So can
So
you
as
talk a
far
little
as
bit? Yeah, what does that look like, the partnering relationship structure?
yeah, lately I'll find a deal, which I do all cold calling. So I'll have my deals come into my CRM and I'll find something that I'm pretty sure is a deal and I'll send it to the agent that works that area and just ask him if he wants to partner on it or fund it. If I have the cash and I'm fairly sure it's a deal, I'll buy it myself, but I can just do so much more when I'm using other people's money and using other people's brain power. So it's just a lot easier that way. And a little bit less risky because they're from that area. They know it, like they've been working it their whole lives. But yeah, they will basically purchase the property for me or give me the money to purchase the property. And then they'll also, if we have to fix up the property, they'll bring their guys in to bush hog it or put a culvert in or whatever, clear some trees out. And then they also list it and then we split the profit in the end. So I think it's a great deal.
Yeah, that's super smart. Partnering with experts in that area that not only
Yeah.
know the area, but can also do things like what you just mentioned, have boots on the ground in that market, know different vendors in that market. So when you send these leads over to these agents, are they typically under contract before you send them over, or do you send them over before you get them under contract?
Yeah, if I don't know the agent, I'll probably put it under contract first. The ones that I have a relationship already, I'll send the stuff like that I don't have under contract. I'll say, "What do you think about this?" And that he'll say, "Lock that up right now," and I'll go send the guy a purchase agreement. Or he'll say, "That's the margins are pretty slim there. I don't see us being able to fund that and then sell it retail. So maybe that's a wholesale opportunity, or I just pass on it."
Calling all ambitious land flippers, ready to transform your business with proven systems and processes? Imagine this. One of my students recently closed 2 land deals and got another under contract in just 24 hours. That's the power of a well-oiled land flipping machine. My exclusive coaching program is specifically designed for action takers just like you. We'll build out your entire operation from lead gen to dispo, implementing these systems on real deals from day one. But hurry, I'm only accepting 3 new students until 2025. If you've done deals, have a growth mindset, and are ready to scale, visit kindlecall.com now. Let's turn your land business into a consistent profit powerhouse. Yeah, that's really good. Also, really good, like a fail safe. That way you don't have
Right.
unknown agents going and scooping up the deals from underneath you.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of agents that would never do anything like that with, an investor. But there are also agents out there that have been in the land game for a long time. And a lot of these land agents, like they don't even know about this whole national society of land investors that we're like knee deep in all the time. So they don't realize that we're even out there a lot of the times, but we
Yeah,
can bring good opportunities to them.
absolutely. And I love the creativity of that. There's so many more ways to skin the cat, especially when it comes to real estate. So very cool, creative approach there. So when did you start your business? Remind me.
March of 2022.
2022. So roughly a little over 2 years since you started your business, and you've flipped over 100 land deals in that particular time period. Tell me about your team. Are you doing it by yourself, or do you have help, or what does your team look like?
Yeah. For the first year, I was basically a solopreneur. And I finally broke down and hired basically an executive assistant. So my title agent, Kristen, is also my executive assistant. So she works for the title company, and then I hired her part-time to work for me too, which has worked out super well because she's just as the title agent, she's already knee deep in my files. So it just works really well. So she double dips at work. Um, but it works well for me, and I'm bringing them a ton of business every year. So it works well for them too. So I think it's a win. So I have my EA, and then a couple months later, I hired an acquisitions manager, or basically like an intake manager. He handles, as I use LandCaller. As LandCaller submits the leads, my acquisitions manager, Jake, who was a friend of mine from high school, who actually heard my podcast with Seth and had reached out to me about it and just told me that he was interested. And I was trying to get him started like on his own, and he was working super hard at it for 2 or 3 months and never found a deal. Or he found a few possible deals, they just never came to fruition. But I realized like how hard he was working, and was just like, maybe I should just hire this guy. And he's been on my team for about 6 months now. He's been doing a really good job. He will take the leads as they come in and reach out to the sellers and just do an initial call that you build rapport, ask a couple more questions about the property, and then we'll always get permission to go on the property. And usually once he makes that call, he'll put the notes in, he'll move it down the pipeline to create offer, and it will ding my phone or computer to get on there and create the offer. So get on Land ID, figure out what it's worth, what I want to spend on it. Then I put it in, offer created, and it'll ding him back, and he'll go ahead and in a day or two make that call back with the offer.
Yeah, that's great. And so do you personally go out to the property, to every single property that you flip, or what's your approach to that?
No, I buy all over the state, so that some of them are 6, 7 hours away. I don't. The first probably 3 or 4, I was out there, but now I only do it for fun, or if I want to take my kids out there to walk around on the trail, or I'll go walk around it with my real estate agent just if we want to go have lunch and walk around and just get out of this office for a little while. But but no, I think you can comp land pretty accurately without having to walk on the property at this point in time. If I ever have any questions, I'll have a realtor in that area go walk it for me.
Yeah, really good. So talk to me about how you decide which markets to target. Like when you're looking for new markets, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, I wish I had something better here, but I basically stick to my 2 states, and I roll through every county in the state once or twice a year. So I just have my 2 areas. I hit them over and over again, and it stayed pretty consistent so far. Eventually, I might have to pick. There's hotter counties than others, but I've made money in counties that nobody else would ever touch. And I think that's everybody takes the big city and they draw the bubble around it, and they try to go 50 miles out from the big city, and everybody's in the same place as marketing. Whereas you can go in some of these rural counties and buy stuff for pennies on the dollar still, and it might be 100 acres of rural land, but it might have great timber on it. So you could shop it around to timber guys, or if you pick it up cheap enough, you might be able to sell it to hunters that are a few hours away that don't mind driving up there to go hunt on it. Or I don't know. There's money to be made everywhere.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And so when you talk about deploying your own capital to buy these properties, it's often been said that sometimes we know that hotter markets, they move faster than others, meaning that the inventory is going to stay on the market for a lot shorter of amount of time than, say, really far out there piece of rural property. Sometimes, it's not
Mhm.
always a rule of thumb. But in
Right.
terms of when you're assessing risk to take down these properties, what's your process for that? Talk us through if you're in a county where it's, yeah, not a lot is moving very quickly. How do you approach that?
Yeah, I would test it by wholesaling something first before I bought something with my own money. So I would say you found 100 acres in the middle of nowhere, Mississippi, and you put it under contract for what you think is 60% of market value, and your exit is 80 to 85% wholesale exit, right? So I would put it under contract for somewhere between 45 and 60 days, and I would just market it as hard as I could and just see what kind of interest I can generate. And I know that in a week or two, if I have no interest, I was probably wrong. So if it gets to the end of that contract, I'll sacrifice my earnest money. I try to put up enough earnest money to make it fair to them. I don't put anything under $500 all the way up to $5,000, depending on how big the property is, because I'm not trying to back out of these contracts. I really do want to get it moved for these people, but I will sacrifice the earnest money if I don't have any interested buyers at the end of the contract.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So whenever you are pulling your lists, so you talked about that you are in two specific states, do you pull the entire state? What's your criteria for when you're pulling these vacant land owners?
Yeah, 10 acres and up, residential, vacant, or agricultural land, and not a whole lot. I don't. It's basically the whole county. I go county by county. I probably do 10 counties at a time, but I'll go through and do the whole state.
Wow.
Um, Land caller actually pulls my list for me because they want to make sure they put it through all their filters and whatnot, the DNC scrubbing and those kind of things. But that's my general filters, just those couple.
Excellent. And what are your main deal breakers whenever you're assessing properties?
It's That's hard to say sometimes. It depends on the price, really, because I've put stuff under contract that other people would have never touched, that have wetlands on it or flood zone, or maybe it's clear cut. They cut all the timber off of it and still made, or even landlocked. I've made $50,000 on landlocked property just by marketing it to the neighbors or something. So I really think there's literally, you could pick any one of these niches and make money. But a general deal breaker would be obviously if the price is too high, weird access, like crazy looking neighbors with trash in their yard, that might. But even that, if you get it at a good enough price and you're just putting it under contract to see if you can move the contract, there's not much risk there.
So whenever you are testing these listings, I'm assuming that you're using Facebook Marketplace. Is there anything else that you're like any other posting area that you're looking at?
Mostly just Facebook Marketplace and then the buy sell trade groups. I probably have 10,000 different buy sell trade groups that I've joined over the last 2 years. Those work really well. Besides that, it's usually phone calls. I'll call the realtors in the area and just say, hey, I've got this property. I'll introduce myself, let them know what I do, let them know the property I have in their area, and let them know that I'm happy to pay any kind of commissions if they were to send a buyer my way. And that's worked a few times. But typically, if you can sell something at 80 to 85% of what everything else is selling for in that area, you can usually get it moved.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about what your outbound marketing looks like? You mentioned cold calling. How many cold calls are you getting out in a month? What is the ratio for deals to calls? What does that look like?
Yeah. Dang, I should have pulled that up. I think it's about 4 or 5,000 calls per day, and I have two cold callers. So it's almost 10,000 calls per day. The leads that are submitted are usually between 20 and 40 per week. Out of those, I do 2 to 4 deals per month. So whatever those numbers end up being.
Excellent. And so can you talk a little bit about, did you say that it was just your acquisitions manager that's now negotiating these deals and presenting offers? Are you also doing that?
No, I don't. I try not to talk to any sellers anymore if I don't have to. So I hired the assistant, which was a huge help. She took a lot of the smaller stuff off my plate, bookkeeping and transaction coordination and just a lot of stuff. And then I hired the acquisitions guy. And for some reason, I didn't realize that was going to make me full-time dispositions guy. So that's basically what I am now,
Yeah,
full-time
yeah.
dispositions guy. But it's a good role for me right now. I make a lot of relationships with land buyers and inland developers. I'm going to sit in this seat for a couple more months before I try to, offload it onto somebody else, or maybe promote my acquisitions guy to do both if he can. He's a full-time teacher and a football coach, so he's a little bit busy during football season, but
Yeah,
during the summer he's killing it.
yeah, that's fantastic. By the way, TC, a lot of people might argue like that's not a little thing. That's a big thing to take off your plate. That's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. So, can you talk a little bit about what are some things that you have found, tweaks that you've made in your cold call outbound process that's really helped to maybe increase conversion or increase the amount of contracts that you're getting? Are there any tips that you can give people who are also cold calling, they're looking to elevate their cold call game?
Yeah, we have a pretty generic, what do they call it? The cold callers, they have a script, pretty generic script. It's not anything super fancy. What tips would I have? I'm always surprised that cold calling even works in like rural Mississippi, because I know that the cold callers, they have a little bit of an accent. I think they're Egyptian. It's not bad or anything, but I was always skeptical. Like, these Egyptians are going to call these very rural Mississippi people and have a
Yeah.
conversation together. And like, when the lead started coming in, I was just blown away that that even worked. But I would just say that anybody who's looking to do cold calling, it's a little bit time intensive. My acquisitions guy, he's on the phone a good bit. Like, you got to have conversations with these people, and you can limit the conversation to 5 or 10 minutes. But if you're doing that 40 times a week, that's a lot of phone time.
Yeah.
There's better ways there's less intensive ways to market if you don't have a bunch of time. So make sure you have a bunch of time on your hands.
Much time. Awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you are now the Dispo full-time guy in your business. What are some of the tools that you use as far as Dispo and elevating that, making sure that you're running the Dispo game the way that you need to be?
So I just got back from the unconference in Italy, and
Yeah.
they had some super high level guys there that do all kinds of crazy disposition stuff, like just automated text messaging and their disposition websites and their AI this and just like crazy stuff. I don't have much of that. I don't do super high volume either. I know 40 a year might sound like a lot, but it's just a few a month. So it's not, I don't have a hard time handling that by myself currently. What was the original question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's good. The tools and the sort of the strategies that you use at Dispo.
So it's mainly Facebook, and then just pounding the phones or just leaning on those relationships that I've built over the last 2 years. I feel like that's the benefit of sticking with one, maybe not one market, but one general area, because you can make all those relationships and they compound over time. And then you never know when people are going to start bringing you deals too, because you solidify yourself as the land guy in that area. So I feel like there's people who jump all over the United States at a disadvantage for comping and for building relationships. So there's definitely something to be said about picking a market and staying in it or sticking it out. Yeah, I wish I had some better answer for you there,
No,
but
that's
I
great. No,
basically just Facebook and phone calls and relationships.
yeah, I definitely agree with that. So, are your mix of in buyers, are they typically retail buyers? Are they developers? What is that? What do the percentages look like in your business for in buyers? Imagine having a complete toolkit for success right at your fingertips. That's exactly what you get with Only LandFans School, our premium online community. For a low monthly fee, access our treasure trove of resources, the on-market deals course, acquisitions tool suite, and Dispo Secrets library. Plus, connect with fellow flippers in our active community. Whether you're hunting for deals or closing sales, Only LandFan School has you covered with step-by-step guidance and insider knowledge. Ready to supercharge your land flipping journey? Join Only LandFan School at olfschool.com today.
Probably 50-50 right now. In buyers, they'll pay a little closer to market value. If you're selling it to another investor that maybe it has subdivide potential, and just a deal that I did last year was, I think I put 70 something acres with a bunch of road frontage under contract for 250, and I was going to take it down. I was like in the middle of a bank application, but I had sent it to a couple of people in the area that I knew did subdividing and a little bit of development. and somebody offered me like a $90,000 wholesale fee, and I was just like sold. So I didn't even go through with that one. Um, but yeah, I would say 50% of my properties I wholesale to either somebody looking to develop it or somebody who's going to buy it outright, clean it up, and reflip it. It just depends on the purchase price, really. And then no, the other 50% are in buyers, maybe the smaller stuff that's 15 to 30 acres that I just sell to somebody looking for a small rec track or a place to build a home or put a mobile home eventually.
Nice. I know that a lot of people also try to dispo on Facebook Marketplace. Some people have a lot more success than others. Do you have any Facebook Marketplace tips that you could share with people that are really struggling on the dispo
Yeah.
end for Facebook Marketplace?
Yeah. I got banned from Facebook Marketplace. A lot of people do a few weeks ago, and I was just like stuck. And I realized I need to have some backup plans because it really sucks. I'm using my personal Facebook page, and you can join all those buy sell trade groups, but it's just on your page. So you would have to go do that same thing with four other fake profiles. Or I even thought about using my employees' Facebooks to just use just to post on Marketplace and buy sell trade groups in case I get shut down, or even my wife's. But I don't know, it's such a fickle thing. I have no idea why I got banned. Most people don't usually know why they get banned. I, what I do is I don't mention financing in my post. I, I don't put any phone numbers. I try to just talk a little bit about the land, and that's it. And if they want to ask me questions about it, they can, because I feel like the more stuff you put in your post, the more chances you take on getting banned for whatever reason.
Yeah, whichever way the Facebook gods decide to, hey,
Yeah.
you're no longer a Facebook Marketplace. Thanks.
Yeah. And they
Yeah.
don't even give you a reason or anything. So
No,
it's crazy.
no. Yeah, it is crazy. And try to appeal it, and they'll just send you like a form letter and yeah, thanks for violating the
Yeah.
community guidelines. Okay. So you mentioned financing. Are you currently buying any properties on terms? Are you selling on terms? How does financing fit into your business model?
Yeah. I would like to start buying more property on terms. I haven't done that yet. I've made a few offers that have gotten rejected, but I sell on terms occasionally, more so this year, just to try to save myself on some immediate taxes because I got destroyed by the IRS last year. So this year I've been a little smarter about it. I've been doing some things like some tax mitigation stuff. I'll take 50 acres, subdivide it into 5 pieces, sell off 3 of those pieces, pay the note back, and just hold on to 2. And it shows that I didn't make as much money this year as I did last year, but my net worth is basically going up. And if I can hold on to those 2 years and then sell them 2 years from now, then maybe I can avoid a little bit of that tax. Or eventually I might just sell them on owner finance terms and start to build my note portfolio up. I had 3 kind of goals for this year at the beginning of this year. Um, I wanted to do 3 subdivides at least because I hadn't done any subdivides till this year. I wanted to continue on track for that 40 to 50 property flip range. And I wanted to build my note portfolio up to at least $10,000 a month, which I'm pretty close on all 3 of those. But I have about, I think, 16 properties out on sold on owner finance right now. And I use your land loans, and I'm pretty close. I'm like 8,500 or so. But I think by the end of the year, I'll be real close to that $10,000 range.
That's really good. If someone's listening to this and they're thinking, I want to get into notes as well, what's some advice you would provide those people that are looking to start that you wish you would have known before you started doing notes for yourself?
Yeah. I, I, the first couple I sold to basically anybody who would put a decent down payment down. But now I do a little more digging because I've had at least 2 kind of horror stories about people that I've sold land to. And I've only had to take 2 of them back out of the whatever 20 that I've sold on owner financing. But one lady I sold 11 acres to, it was basically in the middle of nowhere. I bought for $10,000, sold it for $20,000 on financing. She put $7,500 down, so I was only out $2,500. And then I think it was 4 years at whatever it was, a couple $100 a month. So she paid fine for the first 2 or 3 months, and then she just ghosted us. We called, my assistant called, emailed. We tried to get in touch with her. After the 3 months of default time, I finally tried to get in touch with her one more time. I ended up just Googling her name, just to see what came up, and immediately like sheriff's website. And she was running an illegal like dog rescue. It was a legal dog rescue thing, dog shelter type thing out off of the property. And she had 50 dogs out there, and a lot of them were malnourished. They were like dead dogs out there. It was just like a nightmare that the sheriffs had to deal with. Now, by the time I got the property back, all that stuff was gone. The animals were gone. All the stuff was still there. Long story short, that sucked. And I had to basically just wholesale that one for what I bought it for, just to get out from it. I still made money, but I just told somebody $10,000, it's yours. And they were happy enough to go clean it up themselves because they got a good deal on a piece of land that I didn't want to have to deal with.
Oof. Yeah.
And she's in jail.
Yeah, that would account for the ghosting. Can you talk a little bit about what your approach is for pricing notes whenever you do sell in terms of the cash price versus the finance price? How do you break all of that down?
Yeah, I usually don't change the price up. If I'm trying to sell more retail, I'll usually offer. It just depends on what I'm buying it for, because I want 75% of my money back with the down payment. And if I can't get that back, then I probably don't want to owner finance it. And when I do owner finance something, say I owner finance something for I don't know, let's say $25,000. I need them to that I bought for $10,000. I want at least $7,500 down payment, and then I feel safe with that, because even if I have to take it back, I can sell it again, and I'm only out a little bit of money. And within 12 months, I'll probably have made all my money back. Now I do 12% interest, and I usually don't go longer than 6 years. I try to stay between 4 and 6 years. And a lot of those people pay it off early too. So really, if you're amortizing a loan and they pay on it for 1 or 2 years and then pay it off, that's like the best of both worlds, because you basically get all the interest and they're paying it off early. So that's what's cool about charging interest and not just jacking the price up with no and charging no interest.
Yeah, that's great. Now, you mentioned Subdivides, doing Subdivides this year. Can you talk a little bit about how you approach Subdivides? Do you still market for them the same way? What has your experience been with doing Subdivides thus far?
Yeah, we don't market for Subdivides specifically. It's just when something comes across with a bunch of road frontage in a county that I think I know enough about, I might take it on. Like I said, I've only done 3 of them. So the first one went really well. It was 150 acres, broke it up into 12 different parcels. It was a county that doesn't have a bunch of crazy regulation on subdividing, so it went pretty smooth. And I did the same thing with those. I think I sold 7 or so off for cash, paid myself back. That was the first time I had ever taken a bank loan for land. So I paid the 450,000 or whatever the bank loan was off. And then the rest of the other 4 or 5 parcels I sold off on owner financing. And then I also did one that was a 45-acre peanut farm. And this was a learning experience, but I didn't know. I thought it was priced a little too high. So what I did was put it under contract, and I used Land ID to basically break it into the parcels that I was thinking I wanted. And I stuck that up on Facebook just to see if I could generate any interest. And immediately I had a bunch of people messaging me about it. And I was like, okay, this might have, some weight to it. I ended up just, even before I closed on it, I already had these other parcels sold off or under contract to buy. As soon as I closed it, then I can sell it to the end buyers. So I had my surveyor go out there. Then I found out that you have to write your own covenants in this county. So I had to figure out, I used ChatGPT to help me, but I figured out how to write my own covenants and then submitted those. We had to get those approved. And another hiccup in that scenario was the peanut farm. The farmer, he planted his crop, and that's actually his personal property. So you have to let that farmer harvest his crop before you can take over the land. Even if you buy it, that's still his personal property. He by law has the opportunity to harvest that before you can go in there and develop it or clear it or whatever. So that kind of pushed things back a month and a half, and I didn't realize that was going to happen. But now I know.
Yeah, not now. Can you talk a little bit about what level of development have you done thus far on these subdivides? Are these mainly paper subdivides? Is it very minor development? Are you doing any type of horizontal development? What does that look like?
Yeah, I haven't got into any of that yet. It's all been simple paper subdivides. I'd love to get into some of that stuff. It's hard to know what's shiny object and what's worth pouring my 10 to 20 hours a week into. And I've just tried to stay super focused this year because I think I'm a little ADHD. I love listening to new podcasts and like hearing ideas, and my brain will start going 100 miles an hour, and I'll have to like calm myself down and just stay the course for now. If I had $5 million in the bank, I would probably think a little differently, but I'm
Yeah.
just trying to stack capital right now to where my head's completely above water. My financial situation is taken care of. And then I can look a little further into the future on those longer term projects. But I would love to get into that, some of that stuff, maybe even next year. At least have my eyes open to see those kinds of opportunities as they're coming across, and not just be like so wholesale happy, because that's what I am right now. They waive that $90,000 wholesale fee in front of me, and I just take it immediately.
Yeah, yeah, definitely get that. I totally understand, especially when you're talking about leveraging your bandwidth and your time. Yes, there is a little bit more juice in the squeeze if you could put certain value add type things, but like sometimes those quick like cash injections like that's really what you need a lot of times to get to the next level.
Yeah.
So, did I hear you correctly that you said this was for one of these subdivides, this is one of the first times that you used bank financing in that deal?
Yeah, my first subdivide is the one that I used bank financing for. It always just scared me taking on another mortgage. It's just like a whole nother level of risk versus the little wholesale deals I had done before that. But yeah, I just felt really confident. I think I took a $450,000 loan on that 150 acres and pretty much doubled my money on it. I didn't, like I said, I didn't sell them all for cash. It'll be a couple $1,000s a month for 4 to 6 years that'll be coming in from that. But yeah, I would do that more often, especially because I formed that relationship with the bank, got it paid off pretty quickly. They made money, I made money. And then I went back to that bank and used a couple pieces of property that I had in inventory or still have in inventory to put a line of credit against. So I have another $150,000 line of credit that I can, use anytime. So that's pretty cool. That can save me 50% of my profit if I don't want to use
Yeah,
another investor. So I've got
that's
that in my
great.
back pocket. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. What lessons did you learn going through that first process of securing that bank loan for that first subdivide?
Yeah. I was pretty lucky. There's people in the county that had already done subdivides with this specific bank. So they had introduced me to this banker lady, and she was super easy to work with. That's what I would do for anybody who's trying to do that. I would find people who have done stuff in that county and see who they use. I think that's the best way to do it. And then it also helped that I'm from this area. I had a lot of connections around here, so I'm sure they probably did a little research on me before allowing me to have that $450,000 loan. And then I also had almost a year and a half of proven record of making money. And I had a little bit of collateral that they held the loan against. I had a few pieces of property that I just put up for collateral because I knew I was only going to need the loan for maybe 3 or 4 months.
Got it. And so this was a local bank or a credit union or
Yeah, it's a local, small. I think they have 5 branches, um, just all in kind of the same area down in South Mississippi.
nice. Yeah, that's a good pro tip. Love it. So, can you talk about what are some of the tools that you use in your business, like from a technology standpoint? You mentioned CRM. Can you talk about that?
Yeah,
Hey there, Land fans. If you're enjoying this episode and would like to see more episodes like this, please be sure to let us know.
yeah. So I use Go High Level. Before I used Go High Level, I was using literally a whiteboard with sticky notes, and
Yeah,
I probably made like $1 million off of a whiteboard with sticky notes. So
I love
uh,
it.
it
Love
got a little overwhelming uh,
it.
after I started adding different acquisition channels. So I did nothing but texting at first. So I was using either Smarter Contact or Launch Control, and they have a CRM built in. So I didn't really need a big complicated CRM. But then when I started doing cold calling, and then I tried mailers, I had to have something kind of to centrally put everything. So that's why I moved it to Go High Level, and it works. I don't think it's probably capable of 95% more than what I'm actually using it for, because I know it does a lot of cool stuff, but I just basically use it like my whiteboard that was behind me. As
Yeah.
far as like other tools that I use Google Earth a lot. I use the historical images because I buy a lot of timberland, and you can walk back the years in Google Earth. If somebody tells me, oh yeah, that property was clear cut in 1999, I can go back and see that it was actually clear cut in 2009 and he's lying to me. I don't have to go to the property to see that he's lying to me. I can just check him right there. So that's Google Earth historical images is cool because you can see the age of the timber. You can see if there was any buildings or trash on the property at one time. That's a good thing to look at. I use Land ID all the time. That's definitely the best tool in land right now, I think. What else do I use? I use PropStream to pull my lists when I'm pulling them myself and not LandCaller. I think that's it. I make a lot of Loom videos.
Loom,
That's
yeah. Oh,
yeah.
yeah, Loom. But how do you use Loom? Is it just for your team, or do you also send videos to potential sellers or buyers, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I've used it for a little bit of everything. I wish I was a little more creative on acquisitions where I'm sending Loom videos to try to acquire property too. Maybe I'll get into that eventually. But yeah, it's mostly for my team, or when you do podcasts like this, other investors will reach out to you and if they ask me a question, I'll share a little video of me doing something to kind of show them how to do something, or I don't know. I use it for everyday life too sometimes now. Just part of Loom's a great tool.
Yeah, it's a
Kind of
really
use it
great
for
tool.
everything.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. So you mentioned that you do quite a bit of timberland deals. Can you talk about what your approach is with that, and what that might look like for someone that's listening to this and they're not super familiar with that type of deal?
Yeah. So that's all about relationships too, because there's timber companies and timber guys and appraisers all over the place. Just making those connections, and when you come across something that has big acreage, if you come across a 20-acre piece of property, it's not going to be there may be a tiny bit of timber value there, but no timber company is going to come set up on 20 acres to harvest just 20 acres of land. I think it's about 40 acres minimum is what you would need all the way up to infinity. But yeah, if I find something that I think's got some decent timber on it, that's the first people who I will call. I'll find the timber guys in that area, or I already know the timber guys in that area, and I'll shop it around with them. Um, and that's all about price too, because they can only pay what makes sense to them after they harvest the trees, and then they'll usually harvest and resell it, or harvest, subdivide, and resell it. Or some
Mm,
of the really big guys will harvest it and just hold on to it for another 30 years or whatever it takes to replant and then just hold it.
wow, really cool. So they actually buy the property and they'll just like how do you value the timber and how that adds value to the property on top of just the value of the raw land?
Yeah, most of the stuff here in South Mississippi is planted pine trees. So I know just from doing this for a while that you need at least, I think at 15 to 20 years, they'll go in there and do a select cut. I can't remember what they call that, a thinning. And you can make a tiny bit of money, a couple $100 per acre from that. But really, it's 30 to 35 years for a pine tree to be mature to where it actually makes like a telephone pole. That's when they're actually worth money. Um, and that can be anywhere between $500 and $1,200 per acre in timber on those. So it just depends on the age. And I'm not an expert on any of that. I leverage the timber guys for that kind of knowledge. I'll put it under contract as low as I can get it, and then just say, hey, does this make sense? If not, I would just try to sell it to an end user. But those guys are looking to acquire property all the time, and unless you're talking to a really small timber guy, most of those companies have a few $1,000,000 that they can. That's what they're looking for. They're trying to acquire property with timber on it. So if you can get out in front of them and just give them a supply of timberland, then they're your best friend.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool. So let me ask, there's a lot of conversation around market shifting and market changes, and everyone wants the crystal ball. Where do you see the market going right now? And how have you adjusted your business model or plan to adjust your business model to make sure that you thrive in those changes?
Yeah, it was good to go to the unconference and hear the other high level guys having the same issues as everybody else. It's slow. The disposition side is slow right now. And there's a million different factors like economy, time of year, election, blah, blah, blah. So I think everybody's saying the same thing. And it's just good to hear that and not think that maybe it's something I'm doing wrong. It's just all across the board. So the last like I said, this is my third winter, going into my third winter doing land. And both winters before were pretty slow. So I told myself this year that I'm not gonna freak out. I'm gonna take it easy. I'm still going through all the motions, but if I don't sell something in 2 or 3 weeks, it's not the end of the world. It will pick up next spring. It always does. But yeah, that's how I feel. As far as the future market, like where the land business is going, it is getting more and more saturated. I feel like people are going to have to niche down more and more to find their spaces, but there's just so many ways to make money in land. So it's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, love that. And what are you seeing in terms of the amount of time that you're having to hold on to these properties before they end up flipping?
Yeah, that's property specific too, and price specific. So if I can put under contract for 60% of market value and sell it for 75 to 80, it's a lot less time on the market than trying to buying something outright for 50% of market value and trying to get 100% of market value for it, because it might sit there for 4 to 8 months versus if you're wholesaling something, it might sell the next day. I really have no idea. When I get properties all the time that I'm like, oh, I don't know if this is going to be a good deal, and it sells immediately. Or I'll put a piece of property that's in a great area under contract, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be awesome. And it sits there for like months, and I'm like, what's going on with this thing? So
Yeah,
it's hard to tell.
yeah, for sure. What's something in the land industry that you think not enough people are talking about that we really should be talking about right now?
Yeah, I would love to. I don't know if a lot of people should be talking about this, but I think it's interesting, the thought of buying on owner finance, turning around and wrapping it and selling it on the owner finance. I feel like there's a lot of potential to make real good cash flow like that, just like house wholesalers do, whether you're buying it maybe subject to a mortgage or whether you're basically setting up a retirement money for somebody. If you get somebody who's 65 years old and they have this old farm that they inherited that they don't plan on going back to, you can buy it on owner finance for possibly even 0% down, and then turn around and sell it for whatever, a little bit higher purchase price with that interest attached, and make, pretty good cash flow. I feel like there's you can really get creative, and I think there's some opportunity there. What else I think people should be talking about? I really like farmland too, although that's a super deep niche you have to go down, but there's a lot of money in farmland. And that's the same thing. If you can acquire farmland on owner finance and then resell it to a farmer on owner finance, I feel like you can do really good like that too.
Love that. I love that. So, what would you consider to be your superpower?
Superpower. Steph asked me the same thing, and I had no idea what to answer. I think just being a regular guy, just even when I was talking to sellers or buyers, just sounding, I don't have any kind of crazy college education, and I don't use super sophisticated words, but I just am a very down to earth guy, and I don't have any superpowers. I really don't think I do. And I don't think you need superpowers to be in this business. That's the cool thing about it. You don't need you don't need a business degree, and you don't need, I don't know, a real estate background or any of that stuff to really get started in this. And I think that's the beauty of the land business. And you just learn as you go. My superpower is I just do stuff. I am what is it? Ready, fire, aim kind of guy. Just start doing stuff and then figure it out along the way.
That's a serious superpower. Not everyone is like that. There are plenty of people in this industry or that want to get into this industry and they've been looking at it for years and years. I talk to these people all the time and they're like, I started looking at this in 1985 and I always wanted to do this and I never did.
Yeah.
So I think taking action is a serious superpower. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you think that you do differently from other land investors that contributes to your success?
I think I don't overcomplicate things. Just what we were saying. I see people all the time, the same thing. They're like, they'll spend days on what market they want to send mail to or something. And I understand why they're doing that. They don't want to waste money, but you can analyze this stuff to death. I just don't overcomplicate it. And all the deals that come across my desk, I just try to be as creative as possible. I try to see opportunity in things that other people may not see opportunity in. There's been plenty of times where I've called a local agent to look at a piece of property that I had under contract, and he told me, "Oh no, you'll never sell it for that," and I do sell it for that. So I don't know. I just carved my own path, even since the very beginning, like falling backwards in the land. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And do you have any favorite entrepreneurs, business owners, thought leaders that you like to follow, read?
Besides you,
Oh,
no, just kidding.
yeah.
Um, I listen to a lot of Hormozy. I listen to a ton of podcasts.
Yeah.
I drive a lot now that I moved to Mississippi, and then my kids still go to school in Louisiana.
Mm.
I've only been here, like I moved in here right before we went to Italy, so I've only been in my house for a month.
Oh, wow.
So I have a lot of drive time now. I absorb a lot of podcasts. Like I love Seth. He's one of my good friends now. We actually
Yeah, he's
when
fantastic.
I first started doing land, I did the first year. I had learned so much from his podcast. I never took a course or anything. And I got an email from Seth saying, "Hey, if you want to meet up, come out to Phoenix. We're doing this little meetup thing." And I talked to my wife about it, and I was like, "You think I should do this?" And she told me, "Yeah." So I took a flight out to Phoenix and just met a couple investors. And Seth ended up getting my phone number, and we had breakfast the next day. And we've been like really good friends since then. So I, that's been pretty cool.
Yeah. So that's a great guy for
Yeah.
sure. So, what's the biggest surprise you've had so far in your journey into the land space?
The fact that cold calling rural Mississippi actually works, but that's half a joke. But biggest surprise, I'm just surprised at the success you can have with just very little background in any industry like this. I didn't have any marketing or any business or any real estate experience at all, and I was able to come in and make really good money. So that surprises me. I'm surprised at how many people misprice their direct mailers that I constantly get in my mailbox. Like I see them all the time. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if they're using price or what they're doing. I'll buy something and then sell it for less than what the direct mail piece comes in, and they're offering me $35,000 on a piece that I sold for $30,000. So I don't know how these people are pricing their mailers, but it's nuts.
Yeah. So, if you could go back and tell yourself three pieces of advice when you first started, what would they be?
I would focus more on I'd focus more on partnerships. I'd focus more on calling those local realtors and just making friends. And so relationships would definitely be one of them. What else would I tell myself? I wouldn't have that first year and a half when I was capping out at my filters were 5 acres to maybe I would cap myself at 50 acres because I had that limiting belief that I couldn't go above that. But there's a million different ways to disposition something. So I would have took that cap off because there was plenty of times when I came across a huge piece of property that would have been a deal that I just passed on because I just thought it was too big for me.
Mm.
And the third piece of advice is go to some of these land meetups, these land conferences, because it changes the way you think. And this business is super lonely to sit in this little office by myself for 6 to 8 hours a day. That's not fun. That's what I do miss about electrical work. It was super hard, but you get to the job site in the morning and you shoot the breeze with the guys, and there was like a teamwork and camaraderie, and you don't get that when you're just by yourself pounding the pavement. I miss that.
Yeah. What is your biggest passion or goal you'd like to achieve at this point in your life?
It really doesn't have anything to do with money or land. Like I have two young boys, and if I could just be super patient with them and uh, just raise two great men one day, that's my goal. Like I don't stress about money. I don't care about being a millionaire or anything like that. I just want to love my boys, love my wife, have a great home life, and just enjoy the time when they're little, because I know in 10 years, right now I'm their best friend. In 10 years, they're probably not going to want much to do with me. So I'll have plenty of time to put in 80 hours a week at that point. Right now, I work maybe 30 to 40 hours a week, and the rest of the time I'm either playing pickleball or hanging out with my family.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. As it relates to your business, what's your vision? Where would you like to take your business, let's say, in the next 5, 10 years? What's your end goal?
That's 5 years. I feel like it's such a, I know it's not in reality, but it feels like such a long way. And it feels like every 6 months my business changes. I can't imagine what it's going to look like in 5 years. But I do hope that I get into more development. I hope I do more larger subdivide stuff. I would like to do all that while also not losing focus on what's actually paying the bills, which is these small to medium flips that are injecting cash into my business. So I want to stay focused on that. I would love to possibly eventually hire my acquisitions manager full time. And what I would really love is to make my acquisitions manager a bunch of money, because I know if I can make him a bunch of money, he would make me a bunch of money. And it would get him out of teaching, which is super hard. And between teaching and then coaching, he works 70 hours a week for whatever he makes, $50,000 a year or something. It's nuts. And he's a super smart guy. So that's what I think.
Yeah, that's really good. So you mentioned it sounds like you do have a commission structure for your team.
Yeah. So my assistant, she makes 300 a week, and she just makes a flat 300. Every once in a while, I'll give her a bonus, but she only works probably maybe 10 to 15 hours a week. But when some weeks will be real intense, real aggravating. And then my acquisitions guy, I pay him $300 a week also, and then 2% of my net profits, which usually comes out to between $2,500 and $3,500 a quarter.
Nice.
It's a nice little supplement to his teaching salary.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If someone's listening to this and they're struggling in the land business, what do you think are some of the most common levers that they could pull to get over the difficulties that they're having in their business?
Depends on what difficulties they're having, but I really think a lot of people are overthinking a lot of this stuff. Just like we were talking about earlier, struggling to pick a market, struggling to execute, just to send the mail. I wouldn't, if I were a super new investor, I probably wouldn't be sending blind offers, because most of the time as a newer investor, like, what you have is time. So I would use that time to talk to leads. Like, even if you don't get any money or if you don't get any deals for the first few months, you're still gaining that experience of talking to the seller. You'll start to understand your seller avatar, and eventually, if you talk to enough people, you're going to get a deal. And I would take the chance on going to some of these conferences, meeting other people. Maybe they open your mind to ideas that you hadn't thought of, and then just stop overthinking everything. Like, it's really not that complicated of a business model. There are complicated things you could do, but just the bread and butter of flipping vacant land I don't think it's pretty easy.
Yeah, it's not a very difficult business model. It's not super complicated. It's not easy,
right.
but
No,
it's
it's not easy. It's
yeah.
not, complicated.
It might be simple, but it's not.
Right.
Yeah, love that. So I just want to thank you so much for giving to us today. You've been so generous with your time and your expertise. How can we give back to you? What type of connections or resources are you currently looking for?
Yeah, if anybody is in the Mississippi or Louisiana markets and just want to talk shop, or if you think you have a deal you'd like me to look at, or if you'd like to partner on something, that'd be cool. And you can find me on either Facebook, or we could leave my email in the show notes. But that's about it. I stick to my 2 markets here. I don't try to go all over the place, but yeah, feel free to reach out to me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been absolutely fantastic. Thanks so much, Chris. This has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you for sharing so much knowledge and information with us. Sarah, thank you for joining us. And for everyone who joined via live stream, thank you for joining us as well. Hope you guys have a great week. We'll catch you next time in the next one. Until then, take care, be safe, and see you then. Bye-bye. If you're interested in hearing from other 6- and 7-figure land flippers about how they've built and run their businesses, then check out my group, Only LandFans, where I do a live interview each week inside the group. You can grab that link at the description below. Until then, be great, have a great week, and catch you in the next one.